What's up, guys? Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp extension tutorial for you. So in today's video, we're going to check out an extension designed to help you split up faces inside of SketchUp. This extension was voted on by my supporters on Patreon. Patreon is the website where you can support creators that you like on YouTube. One of the perks of being a supporter on Patreon is you get to vote on the extension that I cover every week. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to vote on the extension that I cover every week, make sure you check out that link in the notes down below. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. So I will note this is a paid extension. So you can either do a permanent license for S4U Divide of $20, or you can do a subscription in order to get it for a lesser price, but it will recur every year. So that's just something to be aware of when you are looking at this extension. But what I want to do is I want to take a look at some of the functions contained inside of this extension for how it works. So when you install it, there's going to be two options. There's going to be an option to divide faces and an option to divide surfaces. And so most of the time when we're using something like this, which isn't like faces merged together, right, like you'd see on a curve, you're going to use the divide faces function. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to select a face, click in order to divide it into a certain number of geometry, or it's going to split up the face with some extra geometry. One thing to note about that is, I'm going to undo this, you can select multiple different objects at the same time and do it this way. So that would allow you to split whole objects up if you needed to do something like that. And so let's take a look. Let's just look at our first face. So let's say we're to select a face and we were to divide this face right here. So first off, notice how there's options on here. It's going to divide based on the X and Y axes. And so you can see how this shows you what your X and Y axes are with a color right here. So this little indicator is going to indicate what direction the axes are going. So if you do need to adjust those, you can click in here in order to do that. In this case, we don't really need to do that, so we'll go ahead and keep moving. And so from there, a lot of the settings that you're going to want to set, you can access by right-clicking and looking at this menu right here. And so you have options in here to divide faces by a fixed number, by a max distance, a fixed distance, or a random. And in this case, we've got this set to fixed number. Well, notice how down below, it's going to give us the option to adjust the number in here. So let's say, for example, that we wanted this to be divided 4 times. We could just type in 4, 4. That's going to set our divide value in here where it's going to divide this 4 times. If you wanted, say, 8 and 4, then you could type in 8, 4, and it's going to divide more times on the x-axis than the y-axis. So you can also do things by a max distance or a fixed distance. And so in this case, let's look at fixed distance. So for fixed distance, you can type this in and say, okay, we want this to divide this up starting at the origin point every whatever. So let's say 3 feet. So we'll do 3 feet, 3 feet. That's going to divide this up every 3 feet. So you'll notice the distance between these two is going to be 3 feet, but you're not getting an equal division in here because we didn't set this to a fixed number, we set it to a fixed distance. You can also click and move in here to adjust that distance live. So if you wanted to adjust this way, you can do that. And then notice how that adjusted the x-axis. Well, if we were to hit the tab key, notice how this switches to the y-axis. And so I'm just going to right click and I'm going to set my y-axis to a fixed distance. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring my y value down a little bit. So I'm just going to type 8, 8. And so one thing to note is you need to pay attention to where your mouse is. So you need to click on one of these red points in order to adjust this dynamically, but you can hit the tab key and then jump between these in order to adjust the spacing dynamically, or you can type in a value. And so you can also adjust the rotation of the way this splits this up just by clicking on divide faces, right clicking and selecting the option for rotation, and then typing in a value. So if I wanted this to rotate by 45 degrees, I could just type in 45 and hit enter. So you can see how you can split this up at 45 degrees, really easy. We could also set this to a fixed number in order to adjust the number of divisions that happen in here. So I could type in like 3, 3 and hit the enter key, or 8, 8, and it's going to adjust the number of divisions that happen on this surface. And so one of the cool things about this is this also will split up faces that aren't square. So if I select this face, for example, and click in here, notice how this is going to come in here and this is going to split this up based on a central point, right? So what it's doing is it's finding the central point of this object Notice how you can click on the button for origin to center face. Well, you can also click and drag this in order to set that origin wherever you want it to be. So if you want this to start somewhere else, you can move your mouse this way by clicking and dragging. You can also go back, so you can set this origin to the center of the face again just by using the move grid option right here. So there's a couple different options in here for doing that that you can use. And so one of the cool things that I really like about this is not only is there an option for splitting flat faces, there's also an option in here for splitting surfaces. So this one, for example, if you were to click on the face, it will come in here and it'll do that, right? But it's going to basically split this up based on each individual face that's in here. So if I was to do a view hidden geometry, for example, you can see how this surface is made up of these individual faces. However, if I was to select the face like this, and then click on the divide surface, notice how it's going to divide this up based on a point on the surface rather than doing every single one of the flat faces that's in here. And then you can do a lot of the same things that you could do before. So for example, you could adjust your fixed distance just by clicking and then moving your mouse like this in order to split this up a certain number of times. You could also do a fixed number of divisions in here like this. So we could type in maybe like 3, 3. And that's going to split this up 3 times. And again, this is splitting up those individual faces like this. And so you can also come in here and do things like the rotation again on these surfaces. So if you do want to split up a surface, it's really easy to do that as well. So I have a link to this extension in the notes down below. So if you want to vote on the next extension I cover on the channel, make sure to check out my Patreon page. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.